Greetings. My name is Michael Miller, and this is a Michael Miller trademark training video out to you because you're watching. Thank you and welcome. It's meant for Michael Miller Pilates licensed affiliates, the Core New Core, my patrons, and anyone interested in surviving and thriving as a Pilates instructor or student. I have what ended up as 5 things on my list of titles today. And the first one is the same thing as the subject line of my email that went out. I'm sending an email a day leading up to my convention. That happens at 9:54 on Friday, the 21st of June this month. You can participate in that in any Michael Miller Pilates convention because it always happens at the same time at the summer solstice, down to the minute, second if you can, down to the moment, exhaling into it, waiting for an inhale, and letting the inhale come to you, and use that inhalation as a means of accelerating into the movement of the new path of the planet. A change in direction. So, that's just fanciful. I know that's not literal and being sensational, but it's just a way to draw attention to the reason for the convention is concentration is because of Joe, who was a survivor, and his training is survival training. So the MMP convention is a celebration of surviving. And most notably for where it is and why it is. Well, why it is about survival, and the where it is from a promontory that gives you a big view. A chance to actually observe change, in the case of Machu Picchu, to determine when to plant crops. Survival, observing, and how much our survival depends upon our capacity in observing. So, geez. Number 1, the title of my email campaign leading up to the convention is "The Core is a Grip at the Hip." Now, to me, my impression is 2019, the majority of the Pilates culture is completely unaware of the fact of the matter, or using the fact of the matter in their approach to their role as a Pilates instructor. Okay? So, the core is a grip at the hip. It's not, how did I write that in my notes? It's not sort of like. It's not sort of like this. It's not an image. It's just not a subjective way to look at it. Indeed, the human being has rotational dynamic at the hips. And because some of that has to do with taboos and cultures, it's probably not addressed because of that. But aside from all of that, as a Pilates instructor, you have to appreciate the physics of what's going on. And not only, and see there too, here is, I don't want to look and I don't want to see, I don't want any more of an explanation than the tradition that I got it from and that I want to pass it on in. And that's all fine and dandy to want to participate in Pilates in that way. You know, it's like being historical reenactment, being the bounds within one wants to participate. While so many other interests want to drag it into theirs and encompass it within their own interest. For all you prospective MMPLAs out there, I'm going to have to start talking more to you and to what it means to be one, and how much fun it can be being a Pilates instructor. That includes this point of view. See, I'm not saying it's the best and the only, and I'm not trying to mitigate how personal the interaction is between instructor and student. If we're talking about Pilates, that's all I'm caring about, Pilates. If it's only personal, for me, then there's no holding the curtain back and allowing the student to participate as their own instructor, to be autonomous, right? To let them move past you to themselves. The core is a grip at the hip. I just don't know why nobody wants to look at it that way, and maybe that's because they have to look, okay, why is that? I don't know. And not only is a fact, but you can feel it for yourself, but see, it's a state of denial, or it's a state of willful ignorance or innocence, because someone wants to just look at it within a framework that they enjoy their participation within that framework. Put whatever labels you want to in terms of grouping on that. But it's in denial in a way, like the Poseidon Adventure movie, where people are all headed down on a ship that's upside down. So they're headed down deeper into the water rather than up toward the surface. And so the core is a grip at the hips. That is pointing up to the surface. No matter what a group consensus or a culture that wishes to ignore the fact of the matter or the science of the matter, and that's fine, that will always be part of the culture. But I'm talking to you about surviving as a Pilates instructor and saying that living within historical reenactment doesn't even defend you from all the other intruding modalities and points of view and capacities that would seek to distort what you know and love into something other than that. So, in denial. I don't know what it is. And maybe it has to be somebody beyond me that gets it enough to go out and say, look, this matters. And this is sensational, and I can not only explain it to you as a presenter, I can teach it to you in a classroom, and I can instruct you in a studio. So going to number 2. On social media that I shared, so on Facebook, not YouTube, but on Facebook, it will be down there, of an English-speaking instructor having a simultaneous interpreter to a different language. And I was so jealous. That's such a special place to be. And the reason I'm telling you about it is because I encourage you to listen to training instruction like that, that's being simultaneously interpreted. Even if you understand the original language, because it's in the pauses that happen through the interpretation that allow more clarity to come from whatever comes next in terms of words. Right? So that staccato that comes from being interpreted, I think offers a chance for a deeper clarity in the expression. So you try it out and see what you think. Now, there's more and more coming out on social media, in my opinion, visually, where someone's trying to say, not this, but this is much more Pilates. And it is. And yet I want the third picture that shows what an awareness of and an engagement of core nu tension brings into the picture, brings into the expression in the human being. And so, I thought the instruction was very archetypal, if you will, or very clean with words that translate across languages. Like this is a frame referring to the arm that grabs the leg in single leg stretch. And you want to keep the leg straight in that frame, right? Paying attention to alignment. And the other leg reaches out and hits a bullseye. Okay? What a great phrase, hits a bullseye. If you're listening to this, I want you to know that from the MMP point of view, it's with the metatarsals that you're seeking to hit the bullseye, because that's the final end point of tension out the leg that you're engaging in along with the others to be as uniformly engaged as possible. So, we're here looking at it in one level from historical reenactment, classically done, right? To another level of being aware not only that the hips, the core is a grip at the hips, you know, there's a lot more to go after you stubbornly give up the notion that that could be true or is important to deal with, to deepen your skill as a Pilates instructor. It might be the toe that actually hits the bullseye or touches the bullseye, but it won't be without a demi-point at the metatarsals and an unlocked knee. And see, I didn't see enough of the instruction, but in MMP, it's about what? It's about whole body. Whole body. All of it, all of the body. It's about whole body. Contrology develops the body uniformly. And to get to that requires core nu tension. I'm sorry, but that's another fact of life that you can invite people to challenge and contradict, and it will be interesting to see what comes of that. But so far, you know, What you cannot refute, you ignore if it suits you. Right? And CT and MMP is that way for probably the lifetime of the originator, just like Joe. But beyond that, then, when we get past the judgment of the messenger, then the full richness of the message, if there is one. And see, that's up for you to determine. And MMP says it's sensational. Not only that, but so is core tension sensational. So, I said all of that about listening. So listen to training that's being translated for the succinctness of what gets said in the language that you understand. Ideally, the one that is the original that gets translated. Number 3. How do you put more of yourself into an exercise? How do you put more of yourself into an exercise? My suggestion is that you aim for the ideal. You aim for the ideal. If you don't know an ideal, you make an ideal up, but you reach for an idealization of what you're after to get more of yourself into it. That would be my response, and I'm not sure what yours would be, but I guess my point is that in MMP, it looks at Joe's original choreography as a reaction to reality in so many ways, right? And all of those ways are ideal in their nature. So in reaching for an ideal expression, it's pretty hard not to invest more of yourself for what you're after. So. Number 4. What's new comes from what's old. That's the cryptic title. What's new comes from what's old. And see, what's new to you, probably, is this ideal view of Pilates that has nothing to do with who knew Joe and what they've made of it since. It only has to do with a theory, mine, that there's an ideal within Joe's work just based on the 3 things as a presenter you'll know, which is Joe's definition, Joe's promise, and Joe's sequence. And that's where what's new is an ideal point of view, but what's old, or where it comes from, the new comes from what's old. Just stuff out of Joe's book. Nothing more than that. To get to an ideal point of view that you can feel. That's MMP. That's not any other necessarily. It may be all the others. All I'm saying is that this is the MMP point of view. And to me it's unique because it looks at Pilates in an ideal way, makes a reasoned argument for what that ideal is, based on the evidence in Joe's book. What more do you want? In terms of a credibility and a point of view, unless, of course, you think that the evidence totally contradicts the ideal presented in the theory. And that would be what? Represented by the definition of MMP, which is uniform eccentric loading flowing through progressive patterns of movement. All of that comes right out of Joe's book. What part of it? See, there's where knowing your limitations or what you're applying to matters. I'm not trying to say what Pilates is for everybody or in every way. I'm just offering an ideal point of view considering the biology and the physics that it lives in. Without any of anything beyond that, to which there is a great deal within the Pilates culture. So to me, it's important that you recognize as a licensed affiliate house where your affiliation is, what your affiliation is based on. And what it has nothing to do with. So, forewarned is forearmed, and superior intel gives you a great chance at surviving the stress of being in a tsunami of Pilates passion. Pressed by all that thinking behind the profit motive drawn into the picture. So number five, old money versus big money. To old money, it matters how long you've had it and where it came from. To new money, it doesn't matter where it came from because it's new. You just have it. And so there's a nice snobbery isotherm in distinctions. When it comes to the Pilates culture, as I've said before, it's existed forever and been nurtured and influenced by old money that had nothing to do with Pilates in and of itself because it wasn't making any money to speak of. It wasn't supporting itself. So money was coming in from the outside. And still today, there's a huge component of Pilates that exists and is presented as one wishes because one has whatever money one wants to make that presentation. And so old money is wrapped up in a sense of ownership and prestige that has more to do with or less to do with making money off of Pilates than the money being spent to promote it. Well, now I make a distinction there, and I hear the whole corporate world stand up and say, yes, we're doing the same thing, just on a larger scale, and that's true. And yet doing it on the scale is what makes the thinking press for profits, where the Pilates instructor will live either comfortably within that sphere or not. And what I care about is that you find where you feel fulfilled. And for me, in my opinion, and the whole profession about CT and MMP is there can't be anything more fulfilling than playing the role of Yoda, sending your student into the cave of their own sensation and enabling them to make a discernment in their sensation that gives them more control of their effort. There's nothing more fulfilling in terms of exercising. If I've got to do it, let's go right in there for what matters. Let's see, I headed off of where I knew I was going. So in whatever way, there's old money that seeks to maintain status quo. And there's new money that has no status quo that seeks profits. And it's in seeking the profits that will press for an explanation, at least in terms of what makes the most money, in order to return the highest to their shareholders, right? To fulfill its mission. In seeking the explanation, I'll be interested to see if all that big money can come up with one that's better than MMP. And certainly brands will compete, but the true nature of Pilates is headed toward being looked at as the ideal within it originally. What makes it bastardized is the extent to which it's not the same as the ideal from which it came, my opinion. What makes it more than faux, which is stylized fashionry, because faux is inherently based on something that's more valuable. From my point of view, to survive as a Pilates instructor, you have to know what it is. You at least have to have a really solid opinion of what it is. Actually, to survive as a Pilates instructor, your students have to have fun. Because if it's not fun, why go back? I mean, really. If it's not fun, why show up? As Oliver used to say. So in knowing what you know, that's my ending thing my ending thing is get real. Get real. You can entertain and come from the point of view that you do, we all do, have our own points of view toward this word Pilates. And have huge investments of time and passion and sacred connection to that word. It's nice to know if the big machines that are tearing down the forest headed toward you can only come so far, and then they can't come any farther. Or they won't come any farther for at least your lifetime, if not several more. And that between where the big money can occupy and the old money tries to hold on to, the depth of what you know about what Pilates is and what the target is and how to hit it, how to explain it, how to empower others to explain it. See, there's always these waves of interest in Pilates. And somewhere along the line, there's going to be a wave of interest in Pilates because there's nothing else to attach your enthusiasm to and your hope that it's something new. For MMP, What's new comes from what's old. It's a new way of looking at it as an ideal, and it comes from what's old, which is Joe's book. You know, a unique point of view, and you can explain it. In a field, in a culture that disdains and shuns and repels any embrace of an explanation. To me, the only hope for Pilates is its transcendence to an idealization of whatever the history is. And if the idealization is based on that history, then the ideal comes from the original work, and as such protects not only itself but the original work that it's based on. And so, know what you know. See, the hip is the core is a grip at the hips. And as soon as you know that, and you know how to use adduction between the inner thighs to deepen that grip, and to make it experiential by how you create loading on the body to facilitate connection to that grip and to strengthen that grip, I mean, if you can't go through your session without saying, well, can you feel that? Yeah. But then they say, well, yeah, I feel that. And then you say, well, what do you feel? And then it's amazing sometimes what they're feeling that has nothing to do with what you were hoping they were connecting to. So here you are, Yoda, and you're saying, look, not there, but over here, go in there. Being a Pilates instructor is high art. That gets practiced by millions. Life can't live forever. Read between the lines. See behind the curtain. Add 2 and 2. Then direct your thinking, because if you're not, somebody else is. Geist.